We got a lot. We got a lot to get through this week. Okay. It's been a busy week. So before we get started with today's episode, I'd like to try something new. I'm thinking I'm going to introduce each episode after the fact, meaning that after I record the episode, I'm going to reminisce and recognize what has gone on and record a special intro for each episode like this one right here. So the episode that I recorded with Elizabeth Diane Martin, who wrote this book right freaking here, The Heart's Mind, How Unconscious Responses in Life and Work Naturally Improve Our Lives While We Make Other Plans. This was such a great conversation. This is why I kind of want to do these little intros as well, is because I think that there was some things that just didn't go perfect for this episode. So we'll see. I think it was still great regardless. The conversation was good. And let's go on with our sponsors now. Our first sponsor of this episode is Atmos Planning. They are personal CFOs, chief financial officers who really help visionaries, business owners who really have a passion with what they do, be meaningful millionaires. And that is Atmos Planning. Check them out. Our next sponsor is Planet Duct, and we will roll what we already have because it is already good. Our second sponsor of the day is Planet Duct. Reach out to them for any of your air duct cleaning needs. Now let's get on with the show. Welcome back to the COS Business Podcast, the #1 podcast in Colorado Springs. My name is Andrew Hasley, and I am the host of the show. Today, I'm sitting here with Elizabeth Diane Martin. She is an author and a former business consultant. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is and what you write about, and we'll dive into the business consulting stuff definitely in this episode for sure.
Okay, yeah. Actually, it's all related because my book is called The Heart's Mind, and actually it came about by me working with so many entrepreneurs and artists and becoming an artist myself and discovering where creativity actually comes from inside a person.
Okay.
So The Heart's Mind is all about that process, which I've determined is a 12-phase process, that how ideas grow, how motivation develops, and it's autonomic, like an organ. And so, but I learned that by working with people and learning their comfort zone, their sweet spot for working, and trying to optimize that.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm actually love that that's what you're into because I'm into that stuff, and I'm obviously as a creative that intrigues me because I always want to figure out how I can, be more creative and more productive.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, we'll get started. We're gonna dive into that more in this episode, but first I'm gonna roll the intro music and then we'll get started.
All right, great.
This is a show where we have real conversations with entrepreneurs and business owners who are mostly in Colorado Springs, doing things in the community of Colorado Springs. So tell me a little bit about what your book is about, and how you really dive into that creative process, and
okay.
let's hear it.
Yeah, because individuality has always been important to me. As a child, I was one of 8 girls, boy in the family, and
okay.
So I really wanted recognition as an individual, which never came in a family that large. So I took off, got to college as far away from that as I could, and ended up being married. But the whole idea of a person having a singular voice and being recognized has always been important to me. I fell in love with business just right off the bat in high school, took every course I could, and I've always been a fan of it. I've read jillions of books just to keep on top of it, worked in corporate environments, and then took that into small businesses so that they could adapt, or I would help them adapt, get good structure, but not overwhelm their small business, Like if you have just a few people working, that whole corporate structure is pretty rough.
And how'd you get into that?
Intuition. And that's the other thing that comes up through my research, is that I discovered by studying that I was actually doing something with those people intuitively that I didn't realize was an actual, gift, I guess. And so now at this point, I'm starting up again. I've done all the science. I've written an academic paper on the theory, and I did the book to show how it came about and to introduce the whole idea in the process. But now I was really going to stop there and just kind of let nature take its course, which it did. And I ended up at the 1 Million Cups networking, which I thought, well, that's a great spot for me just to help encourage entrepreneurs. It's what I love to do. So through that, though, I met, not through that, but at the same time, I came across Matthew Pollard, who wrote The Introvert's Edge. And so he was all about how introverts really are the greater anchors in business, right? Because they're thorough, they think things through, they plan, they stick to plans, that sort of thing. And we don't have to pretend to be extroverts. And I'm working with him now to try to discover what it is I can do from this point on. And part of my interest in getting some exposure is to find out from all the people that I have worked with and from the people who've read my book and that I interact with, constantly, what's really functionally of value here to encourage the creativity, to protect it really for every person, not just creative workers, but I think it's easier to recognize that is a money-making productive activity is creativity.
Yeah. So what are some of the things you do for yourself to push that muscle to embrace the creativity?
Well, actually, I how that whoever said it, some people said it was John Lennon. I'm not so sure. There's some doubt there, but life is what happens while you're making other plans. And I stopped making other plans, and that's really how I discovered what I call the cycle of unconscious response, this 12-phase process, and it usually comes with change. So in change, especially if you're caught off guard, actually your natural resources and your inborn talents and qualities come forward because your brain's kind of disengaged.
Survival mechanism almost.
Something like that, but, and we try to get out of that really fast because it's sometimes embarrassing. We might say or do things that are not quite what we want to project. And so we recover from that. And that's sort of the beginning of these 12 phases. And it's easier to spot when something unexpected happens, especially like COVID was a good example, that whole year. And if you look at...
The whole world got creative.
Right. Well, not only that, but I guess my theory is that recovering from things that could throw you off your autonomous motivation, it can't throw you off. That we're like human organisms that are made to survive, and that's one of the survival mechanisms to protect your autonomy, which is, pretty much nobody but you knows what's going on there. And that's where creativity lies. It doesn't always have to be showboat stuff like art and, visual arts, performance arts, and things like that. So I have a lot of fun with people who are engineers or computer programmers or people like that who think they're not creative. And they are, definitely. So I probably got off track. But
you were perfectly on track. Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I respond now to those occasions when life takes a quick turn and I'm not expecting it, but I allow myself to respond, and that is how original things happen. So that's basically creativity and innovation.
So is there ways that you can trigger these chaotic moments, I guess, or these things that kind of take you out of your autonomous mode?
Well, you can, but because it's unconscious,
is that a hack?
Yeah. I think life is hacking you all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
If you look at the progression of our response to COVID, and it's interesting, sometimes I use the 12 months to illustrate the 12 phases because, we were definitely caught off guard, right? And we all had some kind of initial reaction, whether it was to discard it as a passing thing or whatever. But by, February, we're figuring out this is not going away. And by March, we better shake it down and see what we're going to do about it.
Yeah.
And that's really the first 3 phases of the cycle. So it's a very natural thing that we're all very familiar with. But then if you think about it, that's only the first 3, and there's 12 phases.
So what's the next 3?
The next 3 would be once you recover and you basically, by your own priorities, that's the autonomous part, you have to bring change inside of where the world that you govern. And this is all something you don't really communicate with people. And then once you do that, then you're ready to go back out and pick your spot. And so the next 3 are, the 4th phase is to actually go and execute that. And of course you got to navigate. You're not sure what resistances you might come across or whatever, but the determination is there. It's a matter of survival of identity at that point. And then once you've established that, everything comes back together. What was before blends with the new thing, and it feels normal again.
Okay.
At least from your perspective. And then, so that is kind of a breakthrough. So the 6th phase is that you've broken through the change and adapting to it and doing all of that. You've actually reached what I call a level of your greatest human strength.
Okay.
But of course, there's limitations because we're human.
Yeah.
And so
and there's individual limitations too, probably.
Yeah, there's right. All of it sort of brings you back to the fact that you're human. Mm-hmm. So then the next 3 phases are where life sort of picks you up and throws you back into life. Now
phase 7, 8, 9?
Yes.
Okay.
And so now you're basically you've accomplished what is the strength in your own perspective. Say it's pretty much your internal, I'm losing track of the words, but anyway, inner versus exterior. Mm-hmm. And so the next 6 phases are where that comes into the external world. And but the first thing that happens is that in order to really have perspective for the whole outlook in life, you have to know your place relative to what's going on. And so that almost requires a restraint of your greatest human strength right after you realize it. But it gives you perspective, and it actually shows you the meaning of your strength. What is the purpose for it, really? Mm-hmm. Where it fits in the bigger scheme.
And what does this do?
I think okay, we're getting to that. Because the 8th phase is a transition. Mm-hmm. And you're kind of stuck there, you're leaving one paradigm, you might say, and you're going to enter into another as far as your life process goes. And then, so you're kind of in between. It's a liminal stage, as they call it, not kind of between things. But it's a preparation, like a baby in the womb. It's in the birth canal, and it's getting bigger, but it can't move, right? Mm-hmm. But it's in position for the birthing. And that 9th phase really is a manifestation, because whatever happened with that unexpected event in the beginning in phase 1, I think it hides a good that is working its way through your life. And that's why I say that this whole system is really producing
what hides a good?
The unexpected, a lot of times, like even the tragic things that we experienced through COVID. I mean, we could go through that year and see how we all raised our values, the values that we hold shifted majorly. And so even you could think of last year, and I encourage people to think of their process of adjusting through the year. And so July, August, September, those are times when we start really saying, this is my life, this is how it's going to be. And it becomes very solid as far as in relation to the rest of the world. And then there's some kind of manifestation in the 9th phase.
Okay.
And so then the last 3 phases kind of wrap things up. If you think of it, I mean, it's easy for me and some women to think of it as the birth of a baby. There's a lot of turmoil in the birth. And then when it's over, you can actually see, what's the nature? You got how many fingers and toes? You know, and I call this phase comprehension. And it's a wholeness. You know, you had some idea of what was happening through the previous 8 months, and when it's manifest, it is what it is. And another trait of that is that when it's revealed to you, just like the birth of a baby, the parents don't know its physical appearance any more than anyone else. So at the same time that the parents know, other people know. And that's one of the qualities of a manifestation of that good that's growing during the previous phases. Okay, so then having this evidence, you know, manifested, visible, witnessed, I think it creates a capacity for good judgment. And so for me, the 10th phase is that comprehension that says, okay, I can judge this accurately because I have all the information now. And so it's good judgment to me. And so then the 11th phase is, again, if you think about a baby arriving in the family, whatever life was before just kind of, you know, starts to slip away. And in the beginning, when I was studying this, it seemed like, I used to call it disintegration because it felt like something was leaving me, even like a sense of loss. But then I learned that it was actually what was going on. It was like scaffolding that was coming down, and what was beginning to come forward is, so I call it emergence in this phase, that something else is coming out of that. And then the 12th phase is that full reveal. And it's an authority of a type of authority, and I say that it's the authority of good, and it's a way that life naturally feeds us with good in a very non-invasive way that we can own, and also it becomes, I think I called it a beneficent imposition, you know.
Okay.
And so that permanence, I can remember in the very first experiences I detected this. It's like, okay, that was nice, and we've got all this, and let's okay, I just want to go back to the way things were. And you kind of see that even with COVID. By December, say, okay, we got this, it's under control, you know, we're going to have life as it was before. But no.
Yeah, shut down again.
Yeah. And there's this carryover from, and that's why an unexpected event is a mark, because it's a life-changing or a very impactful thing in a person's life.
Yeah.
And it's really cool that all of us had that same impact at the same time, went through the same recovery process, and arrived at the same good conclusion during that same year.
And those kinds of events frequently happen to the world, you know, like what by frequently, I mean like infrequently, but depending on what time scale you're looking at.
Yeah, right.
but yeah, I mean like
periodically,
yes, yeah, maybe every decade or so an event like that kind of, or maybe every few decades, or maybe every 100 years an event like that happens.
Right, there's a rhythm.
Yeah, exactly. There definitely is a rhythm.
And that was the other thing I'm working on, because I think it qualifies as a new scientific discovery or whatever, an awareness of how how humans work.
We got to observe that with our current up-to-date knowledge, essentially.
Right. And there's a lot more hard evidence in unconscious thought because of the brain studies, the machines are coming up with for detecting brains and what happens in the brain. Anyway,
we were talking about Lex Friedman before the podcast.
Yeah.
And he often talks about, like, I was listening to a lot of it recently, and I love, he's an actual, like, if you don't know who Lex Friedman, he's like an AI researcher. He's a professor, I'm pretty sure.
I understand he's the model for AI.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. He is an AI testing. but he talks about you can use AI systems to understand the human brain better than we can without them.
Right. And I can't remember the guy's name, Jordan, someone who is at the forefront of that kind of research and is coming up with something that he hopes will be accessible to the average person, to regulate that.
Help take them through vital experiences, or something like that, and obviously that could have, that could be controversial, but could be, and it probably will be when the technology arrives.
Right.
But
we've been cyborgs for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, these phones, look at us with these headphones.
Oh yeah.
We look like robots from a 1950s movie or something.
And coming back to the whole individuality and creativity aspect, because I spent so much time in computers and understanding them and creating systems and all that kind of stuff, you can get to where you're an extension of the machine.
Yeah.
In attitude and behavior and mannerisms. And I think that happened a lot, not so much now, but during those intense years in the 80s or whatever, when we were real time, everything became real time. So.
Oh, yeah. What do you mean by that? Explain that a little bit.
Real time?
Yeah. When everything became real time, what does that mean?
Well, okay, so in business, before the 80s, computers had to generate reports, and then you put data in, processed it, you got data out, and then you could review it. But real time means
instantaneously.
It's instantaneous, so the operator can see, and I saw it happen. That's why.
No, for sure. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm just a millennial over here.
Yeah, I know. Age myself there, but I'm old. There's no
it's
doubt.
Interesting. There's a lot of cool things that can. I asked that question because I was interested, because you have an insight that I don't have on that. So it was interesting to me.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to watch. And so I got to, and then when I started working as a consultant, working for small business owners, and finding they were just defeated by the machine, and then to see that even corporations got to the point, well, it's just a machine. You plug it in. No, you just added an artificial intelligence,
an extension
to your team.
Yeah,
it's doing the thinking for you. It's going, and people who managed those machines, like me, found out that we knew things more than the owner did, and we tried to. But it was a real conflict. So I think developers have been addressing that. The whole thing about the app boom, making everything personally
the
usable.
Majority of my life I've had a calculator in my pocket, so that's interesting, so
a true calculator, or on your phone?
On my phone. Well,
right,
that's
right.
a true calculator in my opinion.
It's a true computer.
Yeah,
it's a whole computer.
Yeah, it's more than just a calculator. I mean, it's calculating constantly.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah. Let me grab this real quick. I really can't see the screen that well, so a lot of times if you're watching, obviously we discussed it at the beginning, but if I look over, because it's probably going to catch me doing this a lot the whole episode, just to make sure. But I'll try to avoid that.
That's okay. Yeah. That's okay with me.
Yeah. And yeah. So this is a little tricky. I could use an AI for this.
Oh yeah. Well, and there are some advantages, like Lex Friedman was pointing out, that he knows that his own mind betrays him or tricks him or gives him false information. So he liked this whole idea of this gadget, so that it could tell him what he's actually considering or what he's actually feeling or whatever. I'm not sure the details, but
help him get a better picture to make a decision on, kind of, in a way.
Yeah, and just to be able to trust yourself.
Yeah, a little bit better, hopefully. That's the idea behind the software.
Well, and I'm saying, sorry.
You're fine.
I guess I'm saying that my process. Okay, back to normal.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and I get excited. I really think my throat clams up when I get nervous.
Okay, yeah. I like how you prefaced it as excited first, but then you went back to nervous.
I'm excited. I'm not nervous, because when I get started on this stuff, you can't. Okay. So what I identified with, I think it was I'm interested for people to look at this podcast with Lex Friedman. I'm pretty sure it was May 25th.
It's a recent one? Okay. Or a semi-recent one?
Yeah, this year. And so, let me see. Oh, so the whole problem with creativity is that you don't trust yourself, right? or you doubt yourself. And the whole freedom, like with artists, I had one very insightful artist tell me that what fascinates people about artists is not so much what they
That memory card, I think, is about too. We're just having so many issues today. I am so sorry.
Hey, I bring them.
We've had these things don't usually happen either. So
Interesting.
let me stop it. And I love doing this kind of stuff, but it can be a pain in the butt sometimes. So
Well, everything has its trouble.
for sure. So yes,
Okay.
where were we?
I didn't lose track because I was really excited about
Yes.
going into that. So this whole issue of creativity centers on the person, not the tech, not the tools. And we spent all of last century, or at least the last 70 years or so, realizing what tools we now have. But the production is now, all the weight of that is on the individual. Mm-hmm. And you know that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's also true inside of corporations, and I think that's why some of people are finding they're more productive at home, because they have to work on their own. They have to. There's no way to group produce on an instrument, right? Or like a guitarist. You've got to be the person strumming those strings, and it's the same thing with any kind of original work. So what I really want to do is help people optimize that flow that is their sweet spot. There's a book called Flow. Michele, anyway, his last name he's Austrian or something.
Okay.
And that whole book will explain all that. And we all experience it. It's that place when we lose track of time and we're so into it. Well, I've been working with people to find their flow, and especially through businesses, because your flow can stop where the next person starts, right? And if you're trying to be productive as a business, you've got to have that flow continue. And so I spent a lot of time in businesses getting rid of those gaps. And a lot of people do that, but for me, it's one big thing. It's not pieces. It's from the individual through the system, and something that encourages or feeds that person back. That's another trait that doesn't happen in work that we do a lot of times. And that's the thing you asked earlier about how I feed my creativity.
Yeah.
And by doing that, by just responding to life with anticipation and knowing that I am resourceful for what I'm here on the planet for, what I arrived with to give or to do. And it takes years for maturity to happen. And I've been through a lot of those years, and I have that mature understanding now of how I am most productive. So I don't have to worry about creativity anymore. It will happen. Okay. And one of the slogans I use was something like, being original is easy. You just have to be yourself. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows that, but practicing that is not easy, as we know. And that's where self-doubt and, having too much focus on what's going on outside of you. Mm-hmm. And so my book is about including what happened to me. Part of it's my story. The real action starts with chapter 13. I'm starting to tell people that, because if they want the real grit.
What's the last chapter?
How many chapters? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, how many chapters?
I think it's 20-some. I forget.
Okay, so about halfway through.
Yeah, about halfway through. Right.
Nice.
And there's like a series, like 13 through 18. That's the sweet spot. If you really want to jump right to how the unconscious works and how I recommend using my method.
Nice.
Where was I?
Flow. We were at flow, and then I think we were moving.
So I was talking about how the individual contributes in an organization, in a business, and how those people, people produce and create, not systems. Mm-hmm. And so you have to protect that resource, and generally people know that, but I don't think they do it very well, because it's so the bottom line and the profit thing in corporations is so oppressive. I took I have an art and writing degree after I worked with business and computers.
Oh, nice.
And so, and I ditched business because I thought, wow, that's boring compared to this, you know.
Yeah,
so
okay.
I love art. And, but when, see, I'd rather talk about art.
Okay, yeah, okay. If you want to talk about art, we can. So you left the business stuff and pursued art and creative writing? Or
Actually, creative nonfiction, you might say, and that's what my book is basically.
For sure.
Well,
interesting. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. The separation of nonfiction and
fiction and nonfiction,
and thinking about nonfiction and not being creative. You know, I mean, it's creative in my book.
Yeah,
I don't have a book, but if I did,
well, I was often told in business that I was creative, which is not a nice word. You know, it used to be not a nice word in business.
For sure, yeah.
To be creative, like with your books and whatnot. And
interesting.
yeah, but
how the things have changed.
Isn't it great how some of those other connotations are just kind of falling away mainly because people know people. We know human more than we know machine, and we're always fighting machines and what do you call it? Non-human, or no, I wouldn't say inhuman, but they're non-human systems. We know the difference. And I think what I have to contribute through this theory is an awareness that our contribution is the greater one, and that to cultivate your own ability to use your own individual resourcefulness is the greatest contribution you can make in your life.
Interesting. So you're familiar with Ayn Rand then?
Yeah.
Okay, because that sounds very similar.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I try not to read the books,
Okay.
but people always shove them at me and talk to me about it. And
you try not to? Why not?
Well, there's some goofy things in her, the way she writes. So I
haven't read any of the books, actually. I've only
Oh.
just got familiar with who she is and her concepts, like just in the last few months, actually.
Well, you could watch the movie and get a good taste of how
The
her
Atlas,
books are.
the Atlas Shrugged. Okay,
Yeah.
I heard the movies suck though compared.
Yeah, no.
Someone told me not to watch the movies.
I don't know. I think that they nailed the flavor of her books that I don't like.
Oh, okay. Well, they should have nailed the flavor that you could like.
Well, generally, I think it's a general philosophy that doesn't need that much elaboration.
Oh, I got you.
Of course,
Yeah.
people would say that about what I do. So
For sure, yeah, exactly. But yeah, I love that idea. So I guess we'll start wrapping this up. I'd love to dive deep longer. I know you could, I know I could, but we keep the episodes around this length generally. And so, is there anything you'd like to say before we start closing this out?
I think, like I said before, I really am looking for what I've done to tell me what I should do next.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working on business development from the inside out, which is the way I work. And so I'm so pleased to find the Introvert's Edge and this whole program that works that way with me by an introvert who understands that.
Yeah.
It's intense, though, and I'm not, it takes work. But I feel like I've put plenty out there. I'm not just starting first. I'm not leaving a job to start a business or anything like that. I have probably too many things in my resume to say what I can do with it. But I really believe for everyone that life will hand you what you need to fulfill your purpose.
Okay. Yeah. So
what I want
is
please feed back to me anything positive that might encourage me that, you got something to offer.
Nice. That was what I was about to lead into, actually.
Okay.
So if you're watching this or listening, drop a comment and give Elizabeth Diane some feedback. And do you just go by Elizabeth or
Elizabeth? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But when we're promoting your books and stuff like that, it's you want to make sure you type in both names.
Elizabeth Diane.
Okay.
Yep.
Sweet. Diane Martin.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's cool. So yeah, drop a comment, and whether it's what you think she could do or should do next, or whether it's some feedback on some of her ideas and philosophies, and I'm going back and forth on this thing right here.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sweet.
Thank you, Andrew, so much. This was the greatest fun ever.
Yeah, I love that. So where can people find you? Are you on social media at all?
Yeah, I have a page in Facebook called The Art of Perspective.
Okay.
And I am in LinkedIn. That's where that's my home base, because I made it social for me, because I'm a nerd and that works better for me. But they can email me. It's fine for you to use this address. It's heartsmind12@gmail.com.
Okay, sweet. Nice. Well, this has been a great conversation. I think me and you have a lot of similar interests as well, so that this makes conversations funner.
Absolutely. It's been great.
All right. Well, this has been the COS Business Podcast, and we'll see you guys on the next one. And then hit number 4.
All right.
Yeah. We made it.
Yay. Boy, that was really distracting for you, wasn't it?
Yes, that was the challenge,
Oh, boy.
And I apologize that
that's okay.
That's how it went down today. But I think it actually adds to it, and we've had a few episodes where we like this. And I did the first 80 episodes by myself anyway, so
it's it humanizes it, so I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well,